Well, okay. I just got everything going. We're recording. We're on time. Lots of news today. Very similar to last week. I don't have any time for guests this week. We got too much news going on in the space. And when I say the space, I mean Hedera and then beyond. A lot going on. Hope everyone's doing well, seeing some good folks tuning in live on X. I'm in my little video thing here. I did a really cool, and we're just going to get started with the show here. I'm as people have realized over the last few episodes, I'm playing it fast and loose with the format here. We're still feeling things out as we kind of, approach a new era of the show. I'm going to be transitioning to, live video on X Spaces and YouTube. I had a cool experiment with that last week with the HBAR Foundry. I did a panel with the folks who works on HIP 920. That was really great. And it was a little bit of a proof of concept for me for a new live streaming flow. So I'm really looking forward to that. So let's get into it. I mean, usually I do the theme song, but I mean, I got to update that too, because it's got the wrong URL into it. You know what it is? It's like this show is a kitchen that's being renovated now. It served us well, but there's so much opportunity. It's a new vibe. It's a new era right now. So got to get it updated. It is May 1st, quarter one. We're in the middle of quarter one. We're somewhere. It's May 1st. It's Wednesday. We're live every Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, and we're talking about Hedera, HBAR, Hashgraph, everything going on. We've got a lot to talk about. Huge shout out to supporters of the show. Let's dive into it. Right off the top, I want to just blast through a couple headlines here that I think are important to have on the old radar here. And the first is one that I'm really, really excited to see, which is a new exchange listing. HBAR now listed on LBank. Not super familiar with this exchange, but judging by kind of the social interactions and the amount of followers the exchange has, is 500,000 followers. Not too bad, not too shabby. It's good to have a new exchange listing. Also, Hedera has ventured to Capitol Hill recently. Maloney, who's the head of policy for Hedera, was at Capitol Hill with a few other people, including one of the co-founders of BankSocial, which we'll talk about later in the show. And they stopped by Capitol Hill to focus on education. We've seen Hedera really take a focus on educating people in, the American government. I think that's a big trend of what we talk about in the Web3 spaces. You talk about maybe lack of regulations or lack of clarity or whatever it might be. And it's great to see networks, including Hedera, actually focusing on the education side, because it turns out that a big part of that is I just don't think lawmakers have any clue how any of this stuff works. And any exposure they have to it is probably through their kids, buying NFTs or something. So it's good to see, Hedera really right in the mix. And when we talk about getting in the mix here too, we've seen, the HBAR Foundation's been going wild on X since the BlackRock news. And we're going to talk a little bit about the BlackRock stuff. There's been some exciting developments and kind of insights from that story since it happened. But the HBAR Foundation, they've been going a little crazy on X, which I like to see. I mean, a big trend that we've been noticing in the Hedera ecosystem, in the Hedera community, is something that people across the board are noticing is a really big change in the communication style, the fire from the hip vibe that Hedera and the HBAR Foundation are bringing to the table, which is fresh. Charles, the president of Hedera, was yesterday on a Spaces with CoinDesk talking about everything that happened. So Hedera just having a much more aggressive stance in the space, which I think is much needed. And this post from the HBAR Foundation is pretty cool. From Sentiment, which is a behavior analysis platform, and they track kind of development activity on the major networks. Hedera is number 3, right? We've got Optimism, we got Cardano, we got Hedera, then Polkadot, and then the usual suspects. Ethereum's on there as well, ICP's on there, and I mean, whatever way you want to slice it, Hedera has seen growth in every area right now. And I think that we can all agree for sure that Hedera is behind in some areas. Maybe it's DeFi, maybe it's NFTs, what have you. But when we look at what is top of mind, right, the key narrative right now in crypto is, we talk about real world assets. Those include all the different things we've been talking about, but then on top of that, carbon offsets, yada, yada, yada. And Hedera is really, you could argue they've been way too early on that. I remember when nobody was talking about real world assets or RWAs in crypto, it's like, that was one of the things that Lehman Baird, right, and Mance were talking about since day one. So I really feel that Hedera has kind of been waiting for this moment. And I think that, unfortunately, the governing council saw DeFi and NFTs and different things like that as kind of in the peripheral a little bit. And I think we're learning more so now over the last year or so that they're actually incredibly important. I kind of say that retail will get us to the top 5 networks and enterprise will keep us there. So I'm glad we're realizing that. But I mean, the governing council has just been laser focused on this real world asset stuff, and kind of like really this year seeing that take off as a major narrative in crypto. I mean, there's a strong argument to be made that Hedera is the most well-positioned network for this. And I think that it's a bit of a chicken and an egg thing now. It's like, are we going to break through terminal velocity on this? And we're starting to see some of those stories that, we might be on our way to doing that. Also too, big update talking about retail, and then bringing it into the enterprise side. Dynamic Hashinals launched, I believe, this week. Yeah, super exciting, Monday. And this is a standard called HCS6, right? So this is using the Hedera consensus service to store information, store actual files on chain, on graph. And the dynamic component is about being able to update your NFT after the fact, without the need for HIP 657, right? Which is the HIP that is going to allow, the metadata field to be updated on the token for the NFT. This kind of circumvents it, but it's not a replacement for that, right? It can be used in harmony with it. So it's a really interesting thing. I talked about it at length with Patches on I think the last episode he stopped by. Check out that clip, but really, really cool stuff. Just wanted to give everyone an update that it is alive. And talking about stuff coming alive, I'm very excited for BonzoFinance. We have a few platforms that are arriving, which are really important. And we talk about maybe Hedera falling a little bit behind in DeFi. What do I mean by that? Well, we know that we lack bridges, right? We have one bridge, which is Hashport, which we'll talk about a bit later as well. We've lacked borrowing and lending. We lack liquidity, especially in the form of stable coins. But that doesn't mean that stuff isn't going to happen. And I think that there's definitely a reaction to that. And we're seeing now multiple borrowing and lending platforms that are going to be coming online. I think there's like HashLend or something, Serial Finance as well, and BonzoFinance, which was co-founded by ex-Hedera Brady Gentile. And this is really exciting to see. Oh, geez, someone just peeled out outside my office. I don't know if the mic picked that up. That's pretty epic. Tokyo Drift. The public testnet is launching tomorrow, and this kind of hits at, their strategy. When I had Brady on the show, and I was talking to him about BonzoFinance and what their vision is. They really kind of hammered the point that Saucer Swap set a really solid strategy for introducing new concepts to Hedera, and it's clear that borrowing and lending is a new concept. And they said that something that Saucer Swap did that was so crucial was, doing a testnet version, right? Being able to just go and try out the product, not have to spend any money on it. And so if you've never tried borrowing and lending and you don't really know what that's all about, and especially if you do know what borrowing and lending is about, but you're not quite sure what that could look like on Hedera with some of the kind of cool things about the network, testnet, BonzoFinance tomorrow, just go play around, see if you can break something. Also too, I will move on to a couple bigger stories. Real quick, first, I wanted to bring up something that was covered on the HBAR Bulls show last week. I don't want to touch on it too much because Brandon and Zepsi did such a great job highlighting this use case and really breaking it down. But really quick, I wanted to highlight it on the show just because I think it's one that I've been kind of sleeping on a little bit. And I think it's time to take a bit of a closer look at it. I'm going to be following it along. Fliggs Mobile is very interesting. And again, when I first saw it, I was kind of like, okay, I don't really know what this is about. I've seen a lot of different, phone provider type use cases across Web3. They're all garbage. But this one feels a little different. And I was surprised to learn that it's actually an initiative from governing council member Deutsche Telekom. So that was kind of, oh, okay, interesting. So turns out that some of these governing council use cases might manifest as literally new companies that they spin up. And when we look at Fliggs Mobile, there's a couple key things. I mean, they've got the they've got the groovy website design that everyone's doing now. And, they're a wireless carrier. One of their key problems they're trying to solve is protecting against SIM swapping. So by leveraging Hedera, everyone can manage tokens, NFTs, all that different type of stuff in this Fliggs Mobile wallet. You get a verifiable credential, a decentralized identity. You can purchase plans and with a credit card. And you download the app, make the purchase, you can start making calls. You get rewards in the form of HBAR and USDC and wrapped Bitcoin on the Hedera network. You get a mobile number. It's just a telco carrier, I think, piggybacking off of Deutsche Telekom. There's a little bit of gamification with, referral rewards and different stuff. But, again, it's about the problem they're trying to solve is SIM swapping. That's a huge problem in the telco industry. And I'll give you a great example, and this might shock some people. But in Canada, we have a bunch of major banks. We have, I think Pluto's listening there from HashPack. Pluto put it the best where people ask what's the banking situation in Canada? And it's we got a red one, we got a yellow one, we got a green one, we got a blue one. We have a couple major banks that are the fulcrum of the entire Canadian economy. And they don't support multi-factor authentication. They only support, sending a code to your phone. So essentially the whole Canadian banking system is stopgapped by, people using phone numbers. And we know that, text message code is so insecure for multi-factor authentication for the main reason being someone could call up your phone provider. I'll give you a scenario. If I'm in Canada and I'm using one of these Bass Ackwards banks, I could have all my stuff set up, super secure, have a great password, get my code through text. I'm all locked down. But the problem is that, if someone gets my password, then, then they have to have my phone to get my code, but they could call up my phone provider, spoof my identity and switch my plan to another SIM card that they have. And there you go. And for high profile targets that have tons of money, it makes sense to do that. It's worth the time. It's worth the effort to get access to their bank account. So that is an example of how it can affect you. And so the Fliggs Mobile stuff, I think what this is all about through tokenization and all that kind of stuff is verifying who you are. So that way that might not be able to happen. So, I mean, all this kind of crypto stuff, it's a wallet, there's NFTs, blah, blah, blah. that's cool. But I think that what's compelling for me about this is the security component and their promise to deal with the, SIM swap issue. So bravo, kudos, Fliggs Mobile. Funny enough, I say that we have a telephone provider in Canada called Kudo. Now, and this is not sponsored by Kudo. Kudo is a ship provider. Now, if you go to the App Store, download the app, they offer something interesting where you can either do regular onboarding or you can do like literally non-KYC onboarding. So it sounds like there's a pathway for you to get a phone number and start using it without like fully anonymously. So that's kind of interesting. They're doing something also similar to DREC. I think that they're using their own kind of proprietary recovery system. If you forget your keys, they made that really clear that if people lose their keys, that's a big pain point. Normal folks aren't going to put up with that. So they're dealing with that. So Fliggs Mobile, Deutsche Telekom, governing council member, use case, and starting small, starting a little bit groovy. We got some fun colors. We got some fun stuff going on, solving a problem. I dig it. Now, talking about solving problems, I have to give a huge shout out to the Hedera community and specifically HungerFighters. This is a group in the community. They served recently in Chicago over 125 plates of hot food for people. And this is obviously a project in Hedera that is funded by the community, and they're doing good with those funds. And I love this kind of stuff because this reminds me of the early days of Hedera, and I think one of the reasons why we really became a part of this. I remember a big theme in Hedera in the early days was, charities, public good. We had a lot of parties, a lot of community events, a lot of mints. There's an argument to be made that, this, in the early days, years ago in Hedera, a couple hundred people, maybe 1,000, maybe more people, literally in the NFT ecosystem, we're able to raise over a few years, like $100,000 or something like that over different events and initiatives for charity for these types of things. So I love this kind of stuff. Massive shout out to HungerFighters at HFighters24 on X. I just love to see that. This is like the best of the community. And shout out to everyone involved. Now I want to talk about something else really interesting. I want to talk about a little bit of it's unconfirmed yet. We don't quite know exactly what it's about. I know Pluto, I know you're listening. So if you want to jump up and speak to this, please request to speak. Feel free. I'll bring you up quick to speak on this. But we've seen recently, and when I say recently, like a couple days ago, or maybe even today or something. Ledger, there's been developments in the Ledger support for Hedera. So a little bit of a background, Ledger hardware wallets, they're important because they're cold wallets, right? They allow you to hold your assets in a more secure way that your private key and seed phrase wouldn't be at risk. We all know about cold wallets, why they're important. And there's a problem in Hedera because the cold wallets really that are available and work with Hedera, like there's Descent Wallet, there's, Ledger, of course. But then we also have some really cool kind of like homegrown products like Citadel Wallet. And the key problem here is the lack of support for other transaction types and other asset types in Hedera. So you're able to hold your HBAR on your Ledger, but you're not able to hold a bunch of other stuff on your Ledger. So Ledger being the most popular hardware wallet, people have been really hoping for this for a while. We saw an update on GitHub, and really awesome to have Pluto here real quick to stop by and maybe share your thoughts on this. My understanding is basically, the GitHub repository for Ledger stuff, a bunch of different pull requests that have been waiting have been approved, and some new things have been added, and it looks very optimistic. But from your end, Pluto, like what do things look like when it comes to Ledger support for Hedera?
Yeah. Hey, Brandon. So this was brought up to us yesterday. I think that these things got merged in. Maybe some alpha for you here. opened up the Ledger app, and there was a new Hedera version,
Hmm.
1.4.2 Ledger Hedera app. Downloaded that, and all of a sudden, I was able to associate tokens and
Ooh,
stake and unstake, all in my ledger. So yeah, after a bit of testing, we started enabling this stuff in HashPack. I literally just deployed this update to the web app, and I'm just waiting for Google approval on the extension. But yeah, so all that stuff will be enabled in the next couple days in HashPack at least.
that's so cool. So basically, what you're saying is everybody that has been screaming for the ability to stake HBAR in a Ledger wallet, to be able to associate other tokens in a Ledger wallet, to be able to hold, coins like, Pack token or Karate or Grelf or whatever inside their Ledger, or potentially NFTs, all these different types of things. What you're saying is, and I'm looking at the GitHub on my screen, all these different Hedera related pull requests from Launch Badge that are added. What you're saying is now, hey, we did it. We've arrived. Surprise.
That's essentially what I'm saying. Yeah.
Mm,
Some caveats there. It doesn't look like you're able to send NFTs. You
gotcha.
can associate NFTs, send them to the account, but you can't send them out. So we've disabled associating NFT tokens
Gotcha.
for now. I don't know if that's expected or what. Nobody's really reached out to us about this, but as well as like smart contracts, you can't do that. So like
Mm.
swaps are disabled, and yeah, so like DApp support through a ledger is still disabled, but yeah, you're able to hold tokens and stake and stuff. So that's a pretty big win in my books.
That's huge. I think those two things are what people have been asking for, is like, can I hold other tokens? Can I stake my HBAR? Yes, the answer is now. And it sounds like in the next couple days, people will be able to plug in and get things rocking. That's like super exciting, man. Thanks for the update on that.
Yeah, for sure.
While I got you, is there any other stuff you want to mention before I get back on with the show? Anything going on at HashPack that's interesting, or any updates you guys have?
Um, not a whole lot. I could touch on kind of we posted a tweet about some security stuff. I don't know if that's
Oh, that might
worth.
be interesting. Yeah, real quick, maybe give folks a quick rundown of that security stuff.
Yeah. So we recently got in contact. So Hedera security team reached out to us about some like phishing sites and stuff that their tools were picking up, and we got kind of talking to them about how do they kind of monitor and deal with things like this. And so there's a platform called ZeroFox that they use. We reached out to ZeroFox, signed up with them, and so what that does is it's kind of cool. It like monitors the internet for like fake sites and phishing sites, like fake apps, trademark infringements, fake Twitter accounts, and kind of automates the whole process of getting those taken down. The amount of sort of phishing sites and scam Twitter stuff has exploded
Yeah.
recently, and so this is kind of a huge step forward in us being able to address this stuff and really protect our users from the biggest kind of way that their accounts get compromised. 100% of things we've seen has been these phishing sites, these fake apps, like these Twitter support scammers. Like
Right.
it's insane. And like this has like multiplied the effectiveness we have in taking these down by like 100-fold. Like it's really crazy.
That's awesome to hear. Well, we could always use a little a little more security in this space, because I read too many sad stories about people losing stuff, and I think a lot of times it just boils down to exactly what you're talking about. It's just getting bamboozled, and this stuff I think will really help with that. So that's awesome to hear, man.
Yeah, super happy about that. I think that's basically it. A lot of stuff going on in the background with Pack and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I'll leave that for another day.
Right on. Okay. Well, Pluto, back to work, my man. And thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, man, have a good one.
All right, cheers. Okay, so let's continue on here. That was a great update. So yeah, that's some big news. I mean, you're going to be able to finally store your meme coins and all that stuff right inside of your ledger. So I think that's going to be fantastic. I also really hope I didn't kick Pluto from the spaces. They put the remove from speakers very close to the remove from spaces. So Pluto, if I kicked you from the spaces, I apologize. There he's back. Pluto, apologize for kicking you from the spaces. I think they put the two options too close to each other when I remove someone from speakers. Okay, so I want to talk about BankSocial. So this was kind of interesting. So BankSocial, obviously, we all know about BankSocial. They're kind of an OG project. They're a wallet in the ecosystem, similar to HashPack, but they're kind of a different focus. And for a long time, they've been going after the, credit union angle. That's something that, Lehman would talk about in the past. And I think it's very, very interesting. I've had John Wingate, the CEO of BankSocial, on the show before. So really kind of compelling stuff. And to be honest, I still don't quite get it, but I think that when I had John on the show, I went from like zero understanding to what BankSocial was doing to like, 50-75%, which is great. And so it's been awesome seeing things develop with BankSocial. And this week, there was some really interesting news that kind of felt like all of a sudden, there wasn't really a press release. There wasn't kind of a lead up to it. It was just like a sudden Twitter Spaces with the HBAR bull. And basically what it was is BankSocial has a DeFi credit union. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to move these credit unions to like a Web3 foundation. So you can, in your, your bank, your credit union account where you hold your money or your loans, you'll also be able to hold your crypto, right? HBAR, Bitcoin, whatever, and be able to do things like, use it for a loan and the loan be, minted as an NFT, all these different themes we've talked about in the past many times. BankSocial is starting to execute on that stuff, and it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the coming months. But basically, this is very interesting to me as well. I know I'm in Canada, and I know that BankSocial, a lot of what they talk about kind of lives in America. But the thing is what they're doing is it's not limited to the U.S. So as someone in Canada, maybe looking for some other options, King Solomon's listening. He's just sent a quick message. Appreciates the show. King Solomon, you're a legend. Appreciate you tuning in, man. So BankSocial, some big stuff. I'm still kind of following along with it. If you want to listen to my interview with John that I did on episode 101, go check that out. hashgraph.news/101. You can just find the episode. And it was really explained pretty well. But that's all cool stuff. But that's the big announcement is kind of they've been waiting for this approval from let me see here. What was the body they were waiting for approval from? The NCUA. So they've been waiting for approval. They're ready to move forward. They're going to launch in 60 to 90 days. And this is kind of the final sign off, right? And what happened here was, I think that they were waiting for, they were thinking this was kind of going to happen in kind of more to closer to the fall. And so with this approval that came through, I think the reason why John was making such a huge deal of like this, quote unquote 7-hour meeting and like all these different things is it wasn't so much about like this big build up to something. It's more like, oh my God, this huge milestone we were expecting to happen that's kind of out of our control, like later in the fall, like it's happening like right now. So that's the sense that I got from it, where it was just kind of like a little bit all of a sudden. And I think that that's really the news here, is that the major milestone that BankSocial was waiting to hit, kind of again, close to the fall, just happened to hit it now. And so I think there's some readjustment. There's some pivoting happening with BankSocial. They're trying to like catch up a little bit. But I like to see that. And I think that as, this space continues to mature and these use cases continue to move further down, the pipeline, the kind of their milestones, and also as this industry starts to advance and the general sentiment around Web3 and crypto gets a little better, regulations get a little better, I have a feeling that people are going to have to start to like tighten up their milestones a little bit. I think that people are going to start to have to get a little less conservative with these timelines and understand that things could start to move a lot quicker than anticipated. And this is a good example of that. So I think that is very interesting, very exciting. Shout out to BankSocial. I think they're speaking at Consensus too, which is good to see. They're doing a talk on, traditional finance isn't the enemy yet. I think that is something that a lot of us are thinking about right now, especially with all the BlackRock stuff and everything. It's like, on one hand, BlackRock represents everything evil in the world, but also at the same time, it's like we get so excited when they get involved with crypto stuff. And then just one last mention. We talked earlier about Hedera going to Washington, Nilmini Rubin, the head of policy, doing some education in Capitol Hill. BankSocial, like I said, always was also there. Becky Reed, their chief operating officer, was also there. So making moves, I think that, it's definitely BankSocial's very hype. But I do think there's some substance there. I think that there's some big things happening. I think that it's going to take some time. It's unfortunate too. It's fortunate and unfortunate that like things moved so fast. I think it would have been nice for BankSocial to be able to kind of like plan for this kind of like big news or whatever. So we saw it with Drop getting listed in Fed Now as well. And, Hedera not having any idea it happened or whatever. So stuff like that. But onward and upward, we're going to talk about some more stuff. I just wanted to give a quick mention too. We've got an X community for HBARbarians, the Hashgraph enthusiasts community. I'll pull it up on my screen here. People listening live can't see, unfortunately, but soon, very soon, we've got an X community. It's got about 1,300 people in it, HBARbarians. Lots of good stuff posted there. And I have to do approvals. I really wish that I could go back to the way it originally was, which was people can just join. Anyone can join and just dive in. That's what I'd like. But I do have approvals set up because what ended up happening as it got more popular, like once it got past like 500 members, there just got to be so much spam, right? When you've got a concentrated group like that in a community, it's like every spammer wants to go in and try to like, take advantage of people. So I had to turn approvals on. Usually a couple times a week, I'll go in and approve people. So please, anybody who's wanting to get into the group, just give me a couple days to approve you. I'm doing the best I can. It's to keep the group spam free. So appreciate the patience, and also appreciate supporters of the show, right? I could not do the show without everybody listening. I've been doing it for over 3 years now, well over 100 episodes. We're almost at episode 125, which is crazy. This is episode 123. And we've covered pretty much every major story in Hedera. We've had a lot of really good guests. And then we have a lot of like friends that stop by, which is great. The most important thing I think about this show is it's just independent. There's no ads, there's no sponsors, but yet I can do great things. I've got a ton of really great equipment, a lot of great resources. The show continues to grow, and it's literally just because people send HBAR to the show's wallet, and I sell the HBAR to buy stuff for the show and make things happen. It's just incredible. So wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. Really appreciate everybody. There's all sorts of ideas people bring me for the show. Like, oh, what if you did NFTs, or what if you did whatever? And, maybe I'm old school, but I think that, just sending HBAR to a wallet's enough. It's easy. It's a way for me to understand how much people enjoy the show, whether people want more of it. I'm just going to do it as is just because I love it. I don't need anything for it. But when I get HBAR in that wallet, it's just kind of a little indicator to me that, hey, time to level up a little bit. Time to put time to get this to the next step. So it's great to see. Really appreciate everybody contributing. I want to dive into something a little spicy that kind of popped up last week. Yeah, last week or over the weekend. Why does all the spicy stuff happen on the weekend? So there was a report in Forbes, and a bit of background on this because it's so confusing. But basically what happened, according to, and I'm going to reference a couple of things that Charles, Hedera's president, said, is what Forbes did for this project is they went around to a bunch of different networks and they pitched them on a story. Let me see if I can find his explanation here with the more info. I can't find it. But basically they were pitching a story to these different networks and went to people such as, Charles, and you can imagine a bunch of different other networks. And Forbes was like, we're going to be doing a story about, the future of networks or whatever it was called. It was a positive spin. It was a positive story. And so it was essentially came across as like, oh, Forbes is doing this list of like cool networks. And so Hedera was obviously reached out to, and you've got Tezos and Algorand and all these different networks. And so Forbes went and published the article, and initially, Charles at Hedera and stuff like that was kind of like, oh, we weren't included in this article. Like we didn't make the cut essentially. And so it was kind of bad news until it was kind of, published properly. And the headline actually was "Good for Nothing Blockchains." And that we're seeing right now in the tech industry. I think that of course, we're in a little bit of a bubble in Hedera, and obviously we're in a little bit of a bubble in Web3. But the reality is that the tech industry always has been and always will be a knife fight. If you look back in time, it's, you can go back to the 70s, the 80s. It's like, it's just founders of tech companies yelling at each other in the press, spreading lies and misinformation about each other, doing really nasty stuff. The press making money from riding trends and all sorts of stuff. So it's always been that way. And if you look at the AI space right now, again, it's crazy, the stuff that's happening. So this is what it is. It's unfortunate, but it's part and parcel with the tech industry. It's pretty brutal. But I think this Forbes piece really kind of represents that the most. It's like pitch a story with literally the exact angle and then publish a story with, the exact opposite angle, right? The worst thing. So good for nothing blockchains, Forbes article, everybody's there except Hedera. Now, initially, I'm kind of like, well, Hedera is not a blockchain, so how could we be included? We're a Hashgraph. Well, how can we be good for nothing? Maybe we're a good for nothing Hashgraph, maybe in Forbes' eyes, who knows? But this is blockchains. But that's not true. People clump in Hedera with blockchains. It's considered a blockchain. Hedera has blocks, there was a HIP for that. So just to be clear, Hedera doesn't technically have blocks. It's just like an emulator essentially. But anyways, without getting in the weeds, all these networks were published in this Forbes article, and it was really weird because, of course, people across all these networks were like, screw Forbes and this and that and all that kind of stuff. And people in Hedera were kind of like, hey, this is interesting. And our president, Charles, he, posted about it. People were posting about it. And you kind of go, well, what does this actually mean? Like, what does this mean that Hedera wasn't included? And really, to me, it means two things. It means either that Forbes didn't really deem Hedera like important enough to kind of take a deep dive and uncover whatever, which I don't think is likely. Hedera has really raised its profile, both figuratively and literally. We're number 27 on CMC now. But the other scenario is Forbes did a deep dive on Hedera and just ended up coming to the conclusion that, hey, Hedera isn't good for nothing. And I think that's what a lot of people are taking away from this. It's what I'm taking away from this. But I think the other thing to take away from this, from kind of a community standpoint, is as much as I wanna share this and really blast it and be like, haha, because it would be so satisfying after putting up with, so much of the BS with the BlackRock stuff. It's like, do you really do that? Or do you just kind of move on? And it's one of those things where it's like, somehow it's going to come back to bite me in the butt if I do that. And it is what it is. I'm talking about it now, but I didn't want to get too sensational about it because I didn't know exactly what it meant. And to be honest, it's probably a good for nothing article anyways. It probably doesn't mean a lot anyways. So I don't believe that these are good for nothing networks. It is what it is. I definitely believe that Hedera is friggin' awesome, but I don't think that, many of these networks do not deserve to be referred to as good for nothing blockchains. That's brutal. And that's my thoughts on that. Moving on to our next story, I want to dive into some enterprise use case stuff, some governing council stuff. I want to talk about real world asset stuff. I want to talk about a bunch of new revelations from the BlackRock news, all these different types of things. And really, I want to start off talking about a post that was made on the Hedera subreddit. And again, I goof on the Hedera subreddit a lot, but there's some good stuff posted there, to be honest. And, this is a quick little overview of, people that were kind of like, hey, BlackRock on Hedera and enterprise use cases and real world assets and blah, blah, blah. Someone posted to the subreddit saying like, just a quick reminder of the different other corporations and organizations building on Hedera, right? Atma, Aberdeen, Hyundai, Coupon Bureau, Blockchain Energy Consortium, including, ExxonMobil and all that kind of stuff. LG Art Lab, which I don't get why we're talking about LG Art Lab right now. They shut down their Discord. That's kind of weird. I don't get what LG Art Lab is doing, but anyways, Proven DB, DLA Piper, Shinhan Bank, WISeKey. We're going to talk about WISeKey a little later too. They have WISeKey published the most insane press release. I think it's great, but it's just literally like word salad. I want to read some of it. It's amazing. IBM. And then of course, like we got startups like Neuron, Karate Combat, Dovu, Drop, SKUX. Like you get the idea. Like there's literally so much. And I think this post barely even scratches the surface. So always worth a reminder of like, when we look at Hedera and we look at kind of these headlines, even with the BlackRock stuff, it's like, whoa, a real world asset, a money market fund tokenized on Hedera, and it's very interesting and very compelling. But, the reality is like, it's not the first multi-billion-dollar money market fund tokenized on Hedera. It's not going to be the last. And it's not, it's not the only real world asset, item on Hedera. There's all sorts of things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Red Swan in a little bit here. But first, I want to switch gears a little bit. Something that was published yesterday that I thought was pretty cool. Hitachi did a Gossip About Gossip podcast. And I know that Christian and Zenobia have left Swirlds as of today. But Zenobia had a bunch of episodes of Gossip About Gossip in the can. So there's more episodes with Zenobia coming out. But this one with Hitachi was interesting because I watched it, and we'll watch a quick clip from it too. But I liked it because they talked about use cases and things that are being built, right? We're past the point now of speaking like more hypothetically, or like, what are we going to do with Hedera, or why did we join the council or whatever? We're talking about now governing council members going, oh, it's so interesting to see this council member building this or that, or this is happening in the industry, or we're currently building this on Hedera and we're currently working on that. And so this Gossip About Gossip with, a new council member, Hitachi, a little bit of a different vibe. And kind of some important things that were talked about on it was Hitachi's really focused right now on the EV battery space, supply chain, distribution, the full life cycle of batteries for electric vehicles. That's a theme that's brought up a lot with Hitachi and slots in nicely with a bunch of the different projects that we've seen with like EDF, Dovu, all these different types of things. They want to focus on leveraging AI and blockchain for solving industrial problems. and specifically, AI is a buzzword. Hitachi, according to the individual on the episode, I can't remember his name, but he's the representative on the governing council. They've been in AI for 50 years. I think people forget how old the AI industry is, but Hitachi being kind of one of those R&D companies, Hitachi America, it's pretty crazy. They're using smart contracts, tokens, digital assets, and they've got a few use case examples. I want to play a clip from the Gossip About Gossip episode where they speak a little bit about the EV, battery use case, because I found that kind of most fascinating. So let's listen in here real quick to a clip from the Gossip About Gossip podcast with Hitachi, and kind of what they're working on, because I thought it was really, really fascinating. So let's tune in here.
Love what you are bringing to the table for us over here. So I'll give you another very important use case which we are.
Oh my God, the audio quality is horrible. One sec. I know what I did wrong. I wish here, let's play some quick music here. Fixing a tech issue real quick. Okay, great. So I think we fixed the tech issue here. So let's try again. It should be better quality now.
Possible through digital ledger tech.
It's not better. I have no clue. I hope I broke nothing else. But anyways, here, maybe we can make it out.
Technology, and we love what you are bringing to the table for us over here. So I'll give you another very important use case which we are doing for another of our customers, and that is in the EV battery industry. The world is adopting EVs to be sustainable.
Yeah.
But what about the batteries that go in there, right? And they use...
Challenge, right?
It's a big challenge, and they use material that is rare. And it is very costly to mine things like cobalt and lithium. So one of our customers, which is a EV battery manufacturer, is looking for a solution to trace back these minerals and bring them back. Now, they can use these materials to be able to either rebuild the batteries or even, bring back the elements that go into the battery manufacturing back to their elemental form and sell them. Actually, there's a lot more profit in selling the elements and remanufacturing or totally brand new manufacturing of batteries.
And so they want to prove sort of the...
God, this audio quality is horrible. I can't figure out how to get it fixed. But anyways, basically what they're talking about is like, it's not Zenobia's fault. It's my fault. My audio setup here, I'm still figuring it out. But basically what they're talking about is like, we got these batteries, we got all these raw materials. How does the manufacturer track all of the raw materials inside the batteries, bring them back, recycle them, all these different types of things? It's just not possible right now. And so that's what he's speaking to in regards to Hitachi, is like, that's what the DLT does, is it connects all of the different suppliers across the whole life cycle of the product, from the mining to the supply chain to the customer to the raw materials to the recycling facilities, all those different types of things. If you can track that stuff, then you can actually successfully enhance the whole battery life cycle for electric vehicles. So it's huge. But anyways, I'd encourage people to check out this Gossip About Gossip episode. One interesting tidbit from this was we learned that how Hitachi found out and learned about Hedera was through First Mile VC. First Mile is a venture capital firm, one of the first investors in Hedera. And basically Hitachi was speaking with them, and they were kind of like, someone asked, hey, what's up with the funeral music? This music? This music is actually from a creator called GAM, G-A-M. Maybe doing some stuff in Hedera soon. But anyways, yeah, it's not funeral music. It's a little elevator music. It's music. But as I was saying, Hitachi found out about Hedera by talking to First Venture Capital or First Mile Capital. And they were like, hey, yeah, we're invested in a network. Hedera would probably meet your needs. And Then they were kind of looking at the other governing council members and what they're doing. And so that, right, it's a theme there. It's like, it is true. You know, the governing council is a huge factor for a lot of these future members and major use cases. You know, it's a big reason why they use the network is they reference the governing council a lot, right? Like when I was in Denver at ETH Denver, I had someone I was speaking to that was looking to build on a DLT. They were looking for a DLT. I was chatting with them at the Hedera booth, and literally the guy was like, he pointed to the wall of all the governing council members and he's like, hey, that's my school. And he was pointing to UCL, right? The University College London. And I was like, oh yeah, they're on the governing council. And it was very interesting to talk about what is on the governing council in that context of, you know, his school owning part of this network. It's like big light bulb moments. Those kinds of things are pretty powerful for folks. So I dig it. So yeah, Hitachi. And also too, Hitachi also posted a tweet sharing this video. So it's good to see like governing council members sharing content from the community. I think that it brings everyone closer together and creates that energy that we need for the network. It's very energetic when a governing council member and a community member or smaller project kind of interface in whatever way in the community. There's some kind of kinetic energy there that's kind of wacky that I think can only exist in Hedera. I love to see more of that. Like when, you know, King Solomon was listening to the show earlier, we did an interview with Shyam, who's on the Hedera governing board at IBM. And so you have conversations like that on Twitter Spaces. Those kinds of things I think are a big, aspect of growing the network. But let's talk about BlackRock. Not that we haven't talked about BlackRock enough. For anyone out of the loop, you know, listen to last week's episode 122. We talk about the BlackRock story. We talk about everything that happened. We break it all down. And the bottom line is, you know, a BlackRock money market fund is tokenized on Hedera, and it's not the first and it's not the last. And there's a lot of interesting insights and new information that have come out since that story, since that episode that I wanted to touch on. So what some of the kind of impacts that the network experienced from the numbers is like the HBAR Foundation received like 10 to 15,000 new followers when that happened. It was the second largest month for account creation on Hedera since public access, right? So to put that into context, when Hedera transitioned to become a public network and opened up public access so people could create accounts, last week in that period of the BlackRock news, there were more accounts created then since, public access. So that's a big moment. And of course, we talked about there being, well over $3.5 billion trading volume within 24 hours. And furthermore, something new that we learned from Hashport, right? The bridge on Hedera that we use to, transport assets across networks to and from Hedera. They don't have Solana support. Please add support for Solana. Thank you, Hashport. They saw their second largest 3-day volume total ever last week from the news that Arcax decided to tokenize BlackRock's money market fund on Hedera. So when we look at the actual numbers from Hashport, you can clearly see the spike in activity, right? Look at this, daily volumes, right? So usually we have about, 50,000 to 100,000 daily volume. On the 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th, cumulatively, right? Over $1 million volume. So that's pretty crazy. And what that means is people are moving tokens from other networks onto Hedera. They're moving liquidity, they're moving value from other networks onto Hedera, right? What do we talk about a lot, right? Hedera doesn't have enough TVL. Hedera doesn't have enough liquidity and stablecoins, blah, 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 blah. Right? narratives are powerful. I know that the BlackRock stuff was messy. I know that, stuff slipped through the cracks. There was misinformation, whatever. There was drama, and we hate Cointelegraph and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when the dust settles, this shows how important a narrative is. And no matter if you have bad news written about you or whatever, this translates to real numbers that solves real problems. And people will ask, what good do these ROWAs do for the network, for the price of HBAR, for this kind of stuff, for retail? And it's residual effects. It's the opposite of collateral damage. It's collateral goodness, right? When big things like this happen for the Hedera network, we get collateral delight that we can't really predict. And you have to look in those corners to kind of see that success. So that's been great to see. Also, we learned yesterday from the spaces that, again, Charles, the president of Hedera, had with Cointelegraph. We learned that BlackRock has since reached back out to Hedera very positively and friendly. So clearly, direct communication still exists and is happening, and hopefully, turns into something else entirely. Also, Arcax was also on that spaces as well, sharing some insights, and they said something interesting. They want to tokenize Bitcoin ETFs because they said the reason, and this makes a lot of sense. If you have an ETF, right, on a market, the underlying asset being Bitcoin, that asset itself trades 24 hours a day. You wrap that up and put it in an ETF, and you put that in a market that's only open for certain periods of time, right? You start to see the inefficiencies. You start to see some of the pain points there. So what Arcax is kind of saying is, like, if we can tokenize those ETFs, we can still package Bitcoin into these traditional assets, traditional finance assets, but tokenize them so they can be traded 24/7. So that was very interesting. And of course, their vision, they've said this many times, is they want to tokenize everything, right? They want to tokenize all this stuff. They were asked, by Cointelegraph, like, what else are you guys going to tokenize? And, Arcax is like, we're going to tokenize everything. And I think that's the attitude of everybody. I mean, Larry Fink from BlackRock says the future is tokenization. So it's pretty clear. It really comes down to, what is the network that people are going to choose? And it's very interesting to me reflecting on this whole story of, like, BlackRock was looped in and aware of all this kind of stuff, but it's not that BlackRock was making the decisions on this. They were kind of like, hey, get this done. It's good stuff. Good to see you're doing this stuff. And it was up to Arcax to determine what would be the best network to do this on. And they chose Hedera because, like we talked about, it's, token association. And it got me thinking about, some of the key takeaways here, which is like, I think sometimes we forget the impact of, token association, ABFT, the low fixed fees, the speed, the governance, carbon negative, like those narratives in the Hedera space are kind of played out. I think that a lot of people in this community are kind of like, we've heard it so many times. We're looking for fresh things. We're looking for the hot new thing, right? Being DeFi and NFTs and meme coins, and what are the other things networks are doing? What are the other levers and buttons that other networks are pushing to have growth that Hedera isn't doing? But I think that it's worth realizing that what might feel like tired and overplayed to our community might actually be the fresh thing that other people are looking for, similar to us. And so when I hear that the deciding factor for Arcax was token association, right? Was because they saw what happens to BlackRock's assets on Ethereum, the wallet that was in a bunch of spam tokens sent to that wallet. That's just a really negative thing for someone like BlackRock. There was a lot of bad press around that for BlackRock. So the token association is just huge. And I know that we've got our own problems with it in this ecosystem, but it got me thinking of kind of like, okay, there's definitely some other stuff to focus on in the network. Another great example of this, just, as we transition into some other stories here, but just a quick aside that's kind of similar to this is As folks know, I'm the director of communications at Hgraph, and Hgraph has been, a mirror node service provider for so long in the network. And I thought that getting into the mirror node business, that I would, maybe get a new perspective, on the network or the community. But what I actually discovered was like the other half of the network, right? Because Hedera, the architecture is unique. On a lot of DLTs, you have one node type, right? Which is responsible for reading and writing, right? You put transactions on the network and then you read information to kind of, see what's happened or make sense of things. And on Hedera, they created two node types. They split the architecture, which happens sometimes. And it was very clever because when you split the node types, instead of having one node type that's good at reading and good at writing information, you get a separate node type, right? The consensus nodes that are excellent at reading information. And then you get mirror nodes that are excellent the consensus nodes are excellent at writing information. Mirror nodes are excellent at reading information. You separate it. And so a lot of the stuff we talk about in this ecosystem are hinging on the consensus nodes, right? The nodes that the governing council members run, that write the transactions, that do all the cool, interesting stuff on the network. But when you really pull back and think about it, right? This network is about reading and writing information. Any network is about reading and writing information. And you could pull back even further and say, half of a network is writing information and half of a network is reading information. And in Hedera, we just don't talk about the other half, mirror nodes. It's clear that there's, knowledge gaps and a lack of awareness or understanding. A lot of people don't even know they exist. And so kind of that is on this theme of BlackRock and this story, and kind of there's all these unique components about this network. There's still stuff to be discovered about the Hedera network. But it's also important for us to kind of remember that, some of this stuff might be a bit played out for us because we've heard it over and over and over and over again. And now we're like, we don't care about TPS. We don't care about this stuff. A lot of people are going to start caring about it. It's going to be the first time they hear it, and they might get just as excited about it as we did in 2019 and 2020 and 2021. Something to keep in mind. I want to talk about that, and that's the BlackRock stuff. That's the BlackRock follow-up. I mean, I don't want to spend forever talking about this stuff. It was just some cool insights, some cool information, and figuring out that stuff. But it also started to resurface, and I talked about the HBAR Foundation Twitter account and other people going a little wild, right? Because the reality is, like I said, the BlackRock thing is not the first real-world asset. It's not the last real-world asset that's tokenized on Hedera. Over the last few years, there have been all sorts of different real-world asset, applications, and all sorts of real-world assets themselves that have been tokenized on Hedera, right? Back in 2020 or 2021, Toko, right, a subsidiary of governing council member DLA Piper, tokenized $500 million of securities on Hedera. Aberdeen tokenized a $16 billion money market fund, or 16 billion pound money market fund. So people are starting to share all these stories again. And I love to see that because, again, what's old for us is fresh for somebody else. This is something I learned in the music industry, is like, when you're playing shows as a band, sometimes you just get so tired of playing the same song over and over and over again. It just gets tiring. It's boring. But the reality is the person that's at the show, it might be the first time them hearing that song, and it might be so awesome. And you don't want to deprive people of that experience. So it's cool to see all of these real world asset use cases being highlighted again. But it gets you thinking kind of like, okay, so what's new though? Like, since BlackRock, I know it's only been like a week, but like, is there anything new that's happened in the real world asset space on Hedera? You might be like, well, I mean, it's only been a week. Like, we got to get some time for something new to happen. But actually something new has happened from a project that we've been following quite closely. I've talked about extensively on the show. I'm not going to go into huge background about it. I just want to share a quick update. Red Swan, which is a real estate marketplace that tokenizes real estate, they're beginning now to tokenize $5 billion in real estate as their portfolio, and they're tokenizing it on Hedera. And they have, as we talked about before, they have an open source platform and tooling set to do these different types of things. That's very impressive. And it's exciting because, we've talked about this on the show before too. Groups like Boston Consulting, they've projected that this is going to be, a $16 trillion market, the tokenized real estate market. So by 2030. So it's huge. And those are numbers based off of the technology we have available now. So I can only imagine the rate of adoption is going to happen when new technology is brought into the fold. So that's very exciting. Now, this is where we start to get interesting, because I want to talk about something important that I really don't want people to forget in all of this. I don't want people to forget this other problem that we have to solve. And this relates to kind of like TVR, right? We talk about total value locked, which is DeFi. So all the different liquidity pools, et cetera, and lockups and borrowing and stuff like that contributes to TVL of a network. That's a very important metric. But then we have TVR, which is total value represented, which is more on the traditional asset, traditional finance side, right? Like money market funds, real estate, whatever, diamonds, all these different types of things. And there's a problem. And the problem is what if you wanted to know the TVR of Hedera? And let's just stick with me here. I want to kind of like just brainstorm here. Let's just think about some numbers off the top of our head. And they're big numbers. And it's very interesting to think about. So TVL, right? We're talking, when we look at saucer swap, whatever, we're talking maybe $100, $200 million TVL on Hedera, which isn't that impressive. It's other networks have billions of dollars. So we're definitely playing catch up on that front. But TVR, think about what we just talked about, right? The numbers we just talked about, we're talking about dozens of billions of dollars of potentially total value represented on Hedera. That's pretty interesting. But there literally is no way to find that out, right? There's actually no way to find out what the total value represented on Hedera is. And that's a huge problem, because how are we going to measure the success of this narrative? How are we going to bring that substance to the hype, right? It's literally impossible right now. But the good news is there's a solution, right? So just to tease this apart a little more, the problem is to get that number of TVR on Hedera, same way we can get TVL, is you have to have data sources, right? Where are we pulling the information from? And how do we know that it's true? How do we know that there are X billion dollars of real world assets tokenized on Hedera? Who's supplying that information? Who is authenticating that information? Who is saying this is true? How is that information, approved? And then how is that information delivered to applications and dashboards and analytics tools? And there's some solutions here. And some of them, Elaine Song shared from the HBAR Foundation, shared a great post that I think really highlights this, that I think people should kind of check out, which is some of these groups like RWA.xyz, Artemis, Token Terminal. These are tools that are used to track this type of information. These are the tools that are used by CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, and every other influencer under the sun to make those top 10 lists of who has the most real world assets in Web3. Those articles will be coming, and they're going to have a big effect on the success of those networks. If this information isn't made available on these platforms of the real world asset value tokenized on Hedera, it's going to be a big problem. And to be clear, the foundation has been talking to these platforms since March. And I think that we really have to get on this. And I think that the community can help with this. And I think that it's important to do what we do, raise awareness, and support the foundation and folks trying to get this integrated. Have some social proof. When the foundation goes to RWAXYZ or whatever, and they're like, we need to integrate Hedera. What RWAXYZ goes is they say, well, we got a list of networks we got to integrate. We can put Hedera down here at the bottom, but we don't see a huge demand for it. As the community, we got to help out and show that demand. We need this information, right? There's no point in tokenizing $1 bazillion of real world assets on Hedera if we can't prove it. And as we've learned, headlines, announcements, press releases, whether they're signed in blood by Larry Fink himself, it's just not going to work. You have to do what other networks have done. You got to make the info available. Numbers do not lie, right? So we got to get integrated with this stuff. So whatever you want to do to help out, do your thing. Spread some positivity, right? These platforms that we have to get integrated in, they should understand that they integrate in Hedera. They're going to get a nice, big, warm hug from this community. They're going to be embraced by the HBAR community. It's just going to be fantastic. So let's give them a little taste of that positivity and let's make this stuff happen because it's so important. As I said, no point in doing this if you can't see the numbers for it. Now, I want to talk about a few last things. I saw Christian Hasker was listening. I was hoping to bring him up. I guess he had a meeting at 1, but the show can go on for 4 to 7 hours. He might be back, but I want to talk about maybe the most insane press release I've ever read in the Hedera space, and not in the way that you think. It's just literally insane. And I want to give a quick background on it. And this is one of our last stories of the day. So thank you for tuning in, and everybody. I want to give a quick. I see the usual suspects: Tata listening, No Man's Internet's listening. We got some other folks. Paul, shout out to you. Do I follow Paul? I'll give Paul a follow back. I got to follow some people back. We got Renly listening. We got Grelf listening. We got a bunch of people listening. Shout out to everybody. A bit of background on this. So I'm going to talk about WISeKey. And WISeKey, we did a big overview of WISeKey a bunch of episodes ago. Go and listen to that. But WISeKey is interesting. So WISeKey is a big company. They're a $1 bazillion company or whatever. They've been building on Hedera for a bit. They're doing a bunch of crazy stuff. What's interesting about WISeKey, a quick example and a quick recap of this is WISeKey has a subsidiary called WISeArt. WISeArt is looking to build an NFT marketplace on Hedera that'll focus on both digital and physical collectibles. Cool. What's even cooler is the WISeArt itself as a company is also going to tokenize stock of their company as NFTs as well. So to invest in that company, being able to purchase those securities in that company, that's also going to be interesting. So that little corner of WISeKey is interesting. But what I've learned about WISeKey is it's one of the most insanely structured monsters with the most crazily named initiatives and stuff. It's like mind blowing. My brain flips between like, this is the coolest thing ever, and this is literal BS. That's where my brain goes with it because it sounds so insane. But what we're really talking about is WISeKey. This is a cybersecurity company. They're deepening collaboration with the Swiss Armed Forces to enhance space technology using small satellites. And the partnership focuses on developing secure space-based Internet of Things connectivity, making satellite technology accessible and affordable for businesses. And the linchpin to all this is their Seals Q company. Stay with me. The Seals Q company, and we talked about this, but a real quick refresher is this is a semiconductor company that's creating a way for little computer chips to have wallets so they can do payments on their own. So little devices can pay each other for different things. And that's a topic that we talk about in this space quite a bit. But now I present to you the unabridged reading of one of the most comically insane sounding press releases I've ever read. I have no idea what it means, but it's very exciting. And we know that this is a company that's embedded with Hedera, and they're building stuff on Hedera, and it's very cool. So I want to read to you now the unabridged press release from WISeKey. Geneva, Switzerland, April 29th, 2024. Globe Newswire. WiseSat.Space, a subsidiary of WISeKey International Holding Limited, a global leader in cybersecurity, blockchain, and Internet of Things platforms, today announced the strengthening of its strategic partnership with the Swiss Armed Forces in the space sector for the 2024 and beyond. The collaboration includes plans to launch an enhanced WiseSat satellite in Q3 2024 using SpaceX. The upgraded WiseSat.Space satellite will be equipped with Seals Q semiconductor technology and WISeKey cryptographic keys to secure the new FOSS-SASAT 2E satellite. This satellite is designed to boost performance in space communication capabilities with Seals Q IoT microchip installed in devices. In cooperation with FOSSA Systems, WiseSat.Space has successfully launched 17 low-orbit satellites, mainly aboard the SpaceX Transporter rideshare missions, and is currently developing a constellation of 88 additional low-orbit satellites to optimize global coverage for Seals Q IoT devices. Are you still with me? WiseSat.Space's business model is centered on providing global satellite-based IoT connectivity as a service that includes providing a satellite platform, launch, integration, ground station services, and all security architecture and components as a part of a comprehensive SaaS solution for low-power, secure, space-based IoT connectivity. I've already lost 40 brain cells. Building upon the comprehensive survey conducted in 2023 on behalf of somebody, the R&D and procurement strategy of the Swiss Ministry of Defense, WiseSat has garnered invaluable insights into the capabilities and potential of small satellites for the IoT signals intelligent brackets SIGINT or something applications for the Swiss Armed Forces. For 2024, the focus is on telecommunication in LEO IoT, right? Low Earth Orbit Internet of Things. This is now getting into deep territory. I have no idea. This project aimed at advancing the findings of the 2023 study. Key objectives outlined include expanding IOBT, Internet of Battlefield Things, and SIGINT concepts to explore the feasibility of utilizing space segments with low frequencies for electronic reconnaissance purposes. The project also aims to demonstrate recurring narrow bend connections between objects via WiseSat satellites. Anyways, I can't even continue because I don't think I literally have the mental capacity to continue, but you get the idea. This is like a nuts press release. And it's interesting because you go, okay, is this snake oil? What is going on? My take on it is this is literally just potentially big brain, galaxy brain stuff that we just don't understand. That's just beyond us. Maybe that's why it all has crazy names. I don't know what the Internet Battlefield of Things is. I don't know what the low orbit Internet of Things is, but it sounds like Hedera is in some way connected to satellites. And when we, look at this as a bigger picture and what Lehman has said in the past and recently, Lehman's spoken to this topic before. Lehman has talked about how Hedera has planned for fair ordering when you have multiplanetary network topology, right? So if you have nodes on Mars and you have nodes on Earth all submitting information to the main net, how do you do fair ordering when, time passes differently for everybody essentially? And they've thought of that. Lehman also talks about, Hedera nodes in space for redundancy and all these different types of things. So this fits right into it, but you still might be like, but literally, does this have anything to do with Hedera? Is this literally just BS? And we look at the thread that Danny Eid posted. We talked about this last week, and I'll just mention it again, right? At an event, this guy right here is from the Hashgraph Association. And literally, we are launching a token that we call the Seal Coin. So it's machine-to-machine payment tokens, and we provide semiconductors that we embed into objects, right? The vision of the future is these objects are going to pay themselves. And Danny's thread also, he highlights, notably, we're using Hedera, which is one of the largest ecosystem for blockchain interoperability, especially for companies. They have lots of support with Google and a lot of big companies, blah, blah, blah. So, and again, Seal Coin right here. So it's clear that this token is most likely going to be minted on Hedera as an HTS token. And a pathway is here for these low orbit Internet of Things satellites being launched by SpaceX to contain semiconductors that are able to facilitate payments between each other using a token minted on Hedera. That's what my very simple brain has been able to piece together. I don't know. I have to look into it a bit more. But that still will remain probably one of the most insane press releases I've ever read, because I just don't, I've never heard so many buzzwords in a press release in my life. It makes me feel violated. It makes me feel elated. It makes me feel joyful. It makes me feel overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on with it, but WISeKey clearly is coming in hot. They're coming in hot. That's all I'll say. From low Earth orbit, apparently. Last couple things. I read that, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I read that there's an NFT project in Hedera, Koala Hash Club, that got rugged. The funds disappeared. I'm not going to go into details. The only reason I bring it up is, in the midst of all this craziness and all this amazing stuff, there are builders and projects on Hedera that have been around for a long time that, they've got, they got a couple grand in the bank and they got a community and they've survived the bear market. And what I'll say is to any project out there right now on Hedera, any company or project on Hedera right now, if you are literally still alive and your community doesn't hate you and you got a couple grand in the bank, like, bravo. Like, so many people are just gone. So it's so amazing to see that. And again, I'm being very serious, right? I think that, we talk about these big stories and stuff, but I think sometimes we overlook the fact that, again, these little guys out there that don't have two HBARs to rub together are still alive, still kicking it. And I know that you hear about Koala Club and they're rugged, and it's like, what happened? Well, it's like, the $6 grand went missing or whatever, and a couple hundred people are angry or whatever. But to me, this stuff matters. Like, to me, this stuff really matters. It's been so difficult over the last few years seeing these types of projects just disappear under the pressure of a bear market. And, I think that it's not to say that Koala Hash Club is a great project or whatever. I don't know the details of this. I don't know what it's all, what that's all about. I just see the headline and I just kind of go like, damn, what a shame, and I just really hope that those types of stories happen less and less right now. We really need to check in on those smaller projects and those smaller builders right now, because it gets noisy right now. It gets exciting. It gets crazy. People start making a lot of money. But one of the greatest assets that this network has right now are these survivors, right? Are these smaller projects that are alive right now that started long ago in Hedera, 2020 or 2021, that have been around for a few years, that took a beating over the last year or 2 years and are still here, right? And maybe they're small, maybe they don't have a huge community, maybe they only got a couple grand in the bank, but if they're still here, they're still working, they're looking to grow, shout out to those people. Now is the time to check in on those smaller projects and see if they need help. It sounded like Koala Hash Club could have used some help, maybe getting set up on multi-factor or something. Maybe there should have been some alarm bells raised or whatever. But when you don't have any resources to do stuff like that, you can't. So anyways, if there's smaller projects out there in the ecosystem that you maybe haven't checked in on in a bit or whatever, it's like, now's the time. Go check in on people. These are people that have made it through hell, and they're still kicking around, and they're not out of the woods yet. So anyone could use a little bit of help. And the last story I'll talk about before we wrap up for the day is Mike Maloney. Heyo, Mike Maloney's back in town. He did a little video with the HBAR bull. And there wasn't really anything interesting, to be honest, in that episode. Just what was talked about. It was stuff we already knew, and everything like that. I think why I loved it was for two reasons. One reason was, Mike Maloney, anybody who's been in the Hedera ecosystem for longer, than 3 years knows Mike Maloney, because that's how they discovered, Hedera. That's how they discovered Hashgraph, was episode 8 of The Secrets of Money with Mike Maloney. He was like this older dude that, is a silver and gold trader, bullion guy, precious metal dude. And, that's how I learned about Hedera. And so he's kind of like, whether he knows it or not, in a way, he's like the godfather of the Hedera HBAR community in a way. And so it's always fun to see, folks check in with him, because he got it before I think a lot of people did. Also, the other reason is the HBAR bull, right? I mean, guys taken some heat recently, but the reality is the HBAR bull is a legend in the community. And it was just really nice to see how he was able to just kind of rapid fire updates, and loop in Mike Maloney into a bunch of the new things that have happened. Because remember, Mike Maloney's audience, and this is a guy again that has I think he has almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Like, Mike Maloney's no joke. Like, Mike Maloney is, believe it or not, like a precious metals influencer, with all these boomer precious metal bros, bullion bros, that watch Mike Maloney and hang on his every word. And this group of people, these bullion bros, these old guys, I mean, this is the audience that Hedera is trying to go after as well. Like, we're trying to get the DeFi people. We're trying to get the, Gen Z or whatever. We're trying to get all these folks outside of Hedera and all this kind of stuff. But institutional investors, big money guys, all this type of stuff, like the Mike Maloney people. And still, right, I'll see comments on Mike Maloney's videos where he talks about Hedera, and they'll be like, blockchain's a scam and we'll never run out of gold. They can't shut off gold, right? And so, there's going to be a big run on silver. And so, they're not easy to win over. But that was a reason why that video was cool, is I watched the HBAR bull really kind of deliver the greatest hits recently of Hedera. And I saw the comments, and there was a lot of the sentiment from these guys was like, and again, these are the people that will put in, $250,000 market order for HBAR at lunch or whatever. I'm in chats with people who do stuff like that. Like, there are people who buy a lot of crypto when they want to get into it. And I'm noticing that, a lot of these people are changing their stance a little bit. They're like, I don't get blockchain. Sounds like a scam. But this Hashgraph thing that hit this Hedera thing, this is kind of interesting. And they talk about the governing council and the logos and all this kind of stuff. So that was interesting to me. And I'd encourage everybody, go check out Mike Maloney. You're not going to learn anything new about Hedera. But what you are going to get is you're going to get like a history lesson on the network. And if nobody's done this yet, go watch episode 8 of Mike Maloney's Secrets of Money, and watch it. I mean, it's a very old video. I think it's really before Hedera even existed in a way. I think it was just Hashgraph and Swirlds. He talks to Lehman and Mance and stuff like that. And I mean, it's something, it is a rite of passage for every HBAR. Go watch episode 8 of Secrets of Money from Mike Maloney. Become a true HBAR. Join us. And with that, episode 123, Hashgraph Enthusiast, no pain, no gain. What's the takeaway from this episode this week? Well, takeaway here is no pain, no gain. Famous saying coined by Michael Scott of Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. And I think that, when I say no pain, no gain, what I'm talking about is something I speak to quite a bit, which is it doesn't matter how good the Hedera network is. It doesn't matter how fast it is or how secure it is or how scalable it is. It doesn't matter how good the governance is. It doesn't matter what's on the network. It doesn't matter who's using it. We are not going to be able to avoid the trials and tribulations and pain that every other network has experienced clawing their way to the top 10 or top 5 on CoinMarketCap. It's a pipe dream. There are no shortcuts for Hedera. And that's the reality of it. And what we experienced last week with, the Cointelegraph FUD and this and that, there will be more of that, and it will get worse. That's just the reality of it. And there's another saying, which is kind of like, if you don't have people hating on what you're doing, you're not really doing anything of consequence. If you don't have naysayers, if you don't have people criticizing what you're doing, if you don't have people nipping at your heels, you're not really doing anything important. And so I think that you could look at what happened last week as something unfortunate, as something that may be like, oh, they killed the pump or whatever. But to me, it's like, it's a sign that, you poke and it pokes back, right? Hedera is a disruptive technology. We're learning that Hedera is potentially being viewed more as a threat in the industry to traditional blockchain. And it's clear that, there will be more pain for this community, for this ecosystem, but there will be more gain as well. No pain, no gain. That's what it's about. I'm trying to remind myself of that. It sounds stupid, but it's true, right? It's like building muscle, right? You break it down completely, it heals, it rebuilds back stronger. We're watching that happen right now with this community in real time. The community did a big lift, like Max Walker Williams, got broken down, got burnt up, got sore, right? Muscle rebuilds, and we're stronger now, right? Hedera is stronger. That's just the reality of it, right? You think about the HBAR bull doing pull-ups on the playground, right? That video, that's us right now. We're going through some pain. And we got to kind of welcome it a little bit. We got to welcome pain, problems, all these different types of things. This is what we're greeted by at the next levels. As you get up the mountain, the air keeps getting thinner. As you get closer to the top, it gets harder and harder to breathe. People don't make it to the top of Mount Everest, except Rob Allen, who's on the governing council member of Hedera, without doing that kind of stuff. And that's just the reality of it. As we get further and further to this grand vision that Lehman has, it's only going to get harder and harder. But that's just the way that it is. And we should be welcoming that, right? Every new problem is an opportunity, and every bit of pain we experience is a feedback loop that the network's onto something, that we're coming up against resistance, that we're entering a new zone, that we're participating, right, in the battlefield, in the low orbit Internet of Things battlefield, right? whatever that was. That's what it's about. No pain, no gain. And I'm ready for more pain. And I don't think it's going to be the same pain we've experienced before. It's going to be new pain, right? It's not going to be, oh, HBAR is so low and I have no money and my project's not going to survive, right? It's maybe going to be pain like, man, my project's doing so well, but there's so much FUD around it and there's competitors now that are really coming up against me and I'm really being challenged and I'm coming up against a lot of resistance, right? That's what Hedera is hitting on right now. It's good. It's good. Let's keep riding this momentum. We got momentum. We see the numbers. We see the billions. We see the millions. TPS is up. We didn't even talk about TPS. What the fuck's going on with TPS? My God, we haven't even checked. And then I got to go because I have a squirrel in my attic that I have to get removed. I don't know if anyone's been hearing it, but I haven't named him yet. But obviously very excited about Hedera. So we're up in TPS. Like we're rocking 2,000 transactions per second. And we're going to hit 50 billion transactions very soon. So that's really what it's about. Pain and gain. We feel the pain. We see the gain. We go to bed. We wake up, repeat. We've done it before. We'll do it again. That's what it's going to take. It's not going to be a smooth ride. If you are building on the Hedera network or you're an HBAR investor or whatever, because you feel that somehow because this network is so great, we're going to have a shortcut. It's not true. It's not, it's not about us getting there faster than other people or in a new way or whatever. It's about us being able to stay there, right? That's what Lehman talks about. He doesn't talk about, we're going to grow so fast, right? Or we're going to get to the top right away or those types of things. It's not about that. Right? What it's about is staying there. A lot of people don't talk about that in crypto. They talk about number going up. We're going up on CoinMarketCap. We're doing all these things. How do you stay there? It's really hard, it turns out, to stay there. Right? And the most bullish thing is Lehman and Mance saying that they want to stay there for 100 years. So that's quite lofty. They're implying that Hedera is going to be a top 5 network for 100 years. So if that's not, a crazy goal, I don't know what is. And with that, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's been another fantastic episode. Episode 123. Really, my brain gets tickled when I see that 123. It's fantastic. No pain, no gain. We talked about a lot. Unfortunately for folks, still there is, a BlackRock money market fund tokenized on Hedera. It's still there. Sorry to report. And numbers are going up, except HBAR, but hopefully that will change. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate all you folks. I'll see you on the other side. Hello future. Goodbye past. I don't know why I waved to the camera like that.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/HBAR.